Hey, caller. How are you?
Hey, good afternoon.
Hey, this is Trent Love, vetschatshow. We have a caller on the line. Can you tell us who you are?
Yes, sir. My name is Jamarr John Johnson. I'm a former Marine and naval officer.
Okay. Well, great. Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you for calling in. We're talking about bullying and also the situation on Private Danny Chen. I just got through reading some issues for those that don't know, the background information on Danny Chen. So our audience already knows about the background of Danny Chen, but I was wondering if you can share some perspective on bullying and hazing in the military and your position and stance on it.
Absolutely. I'd love to talk a little bit about this subject. As a former Marine, I come from actually a history of the Marines in my family. From my father as well as my uncle. Going to the Marine Corps was a sort of a rite of passage for me as becoming a man. And I will say that going through boot camp, it seems like the entire time is one giant haze fest. But basically, the Marine Corps has a process of breaking you down so that they can build you back up to be a part of a cohesive unit. And they stress that cohesive unit part because towards the end of boot camp, your drill instructors change their treatment of you and let you know why they did what they did and tell you from that point forward, you'll only be treated with dignity and respect. So when I read the article about Lance Corporal Chang, I was really saddened and taken back because I felt like this was treatment that should never go on, and it should have been supervised more closely by a lot of these superiors that were monitoring the situation. Some of the things that took place were things that I had never saw during my year in the Marine Corps, followed by the many years that I spent as a naval officer. This is not behavior that would be tolerated. So I felt like it was definitely a situation where a few individuals took it upon themselves to essentially haze a member of their unit for whatever reason, whether it be race, religion, or creed, and it was uncalled for, and I was very disappointed.
Well, I thank you for that comment and perspective. And it seems like this is something that not only military, but also civilians can relate to in this topic of bullying and hazing to as what some may see as okay, whether you're a civilian or going through fraternity or sorority, and these rites of passage, as you mentioned before, a lot of training is break it down and build you back up, but at no point is it supposed to be humiliating or degrading, and it serves a purpose in the corrective training phase. So that there are issues. So do you think this is a issue of failures or accountability between the peers or through superiors or across the chain, or how can we?
Well, obviously it's a combination of both, right? The people who actually took place in the hazing, obviously they need to be held accountable. Some of them are being held accountable as we speak. But as an officer, especially Marine officer, a naval officer as well, we are taught that it is of the utmost importance that you take care of your men and women. And take care of your men and women means that against all enemies, foreign and domestic. All right? And that domestic should be highlighted because in this case, Lance Corporal Chen had some enemies within his unit that were mistreating him to the point that he felt like suicide was the only route. Just being harmed to the point where, severe injury could occur. And that, to me, it should never happen. So there were some severe failures in the chain of command in the monitoring of the battalion. Another thing I would say is that as an officer, it is our job, especially as a non-commissioned officer or as an officer, it's your job to understand your personnel, to know them personally, so you can detect changes in their behavior. So you can detect if they're not feeling right, and it's more than just being homesick. What's going on? What's happening, when I'm not around? And you have to build up that trust which is a leadership skill that, you can learn, but it has to be earned over time. So it seems like there's a lot of failures and breakdowns in the chain of command and the communication. And obviously with us being in an extended war and we're sending troops out there, sometimes that may not be ready. And obviously the maturity of some of these troops that allowed this hazing to take place shows that there was some seasoning that may not have had time to take place, and that's why they were able to slip through the cracks and have this travesty occur.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that as well. It seems that on the heels of this, unfortunately, we can't go back and do anything about Danny Chen's situation. However, we can move forward and learn from that and try to prevent, detect, and avoid this situation in the future. And there is one piece of legislation that's moving by Nydia Velasquez that is trying to encompass some of these feelings in trying to do exactly what you said, hold a little bit more accountability, since we should see something and say something, but we should have outlets as well. And also the definition of what is the line. So how do you know when you cross the line between training and building up that breaking up and building up and of a soldier and just plain hazing? How is that?
Well,
how do we get there?
The line is very simple. When you speak to someone, that the only time where you would want to raise your voice and yell is when it's immediate action is necessary in order to change someone to do something that might cause bodily harm to someone else, right? So other than that, there's never a reason to yell, berate, degrade in front of everybody, in front of all the other troops. We had something, a leadership skill, or I would say a technique. It was called, you praise in public, right? But you never denigrate, and you denigrate in private. You have one-on-ones with people where you let them know in a normal tone your disappointment in their actions and what can they do to change, and what can they do to correct their actions. Now, obviously, Chang was falling asleep on watch. That is a no-no, right? That's putting lives in harm's way. But there are many ways to have a productive corrective action. I remember an incident where I had a small breakdown in respect and chain of command with a seaman when I was a ensign on my first ship, and I went through my rule book on how to take corrective action, and it wasn't yelling at him in public and making him feel bad. It was the simple, okay, this is how you want to play it, then I'm going to have you do some extra military instruction while I'm on watch, so I can supervise and correct during that process. So it's simple. A non-commissioned officer should have said, okay, since you keep falling asleep on watch, then I'm going to have to stand watch with you to help you understand and show you exactly how to stand a proper watch. And that's what should have been taking place, rather than leaving a young enlisted personnel who doesn't have experience and training and seasoning up to his own demise. You see, because a failure of one in a unit means it's a failure of all. Because if you allow one person to not stand watch properly, and obviously lives are going to be at risk, but without the proper training, then the whole battalion or the whole section could be in harm's way. So, harming him just weakens your unit cohesion, and it makes one member of your unit who's not going to be focused and who's going to be worried about making mistakes. And we want people to not worry about making mistakes. We want people to worry about how to take the right action and make the right call rather than worrying about making the wrong call.